Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of our Achieving the Vision series. My name is Alyssa Silva, and I'll be your facilitator today. As always, the series focuses on key takeaways from some of the best presentations at the Tour to Shared Vision event that we had in 2023. And today we are doing a deep dive into equitable dual enrollment expansion. It's my privilege and honor to welcome our guest presenter today, Dr. Adrienne Grayson. She is the Associate Dean of Educational Partnerships at Riverside City College. So thank you so much, Dr. Grayson, for taking the time to be here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm really excited to jump into your presentation today. Before we start, would you like to give a brief background description of yourself?
Sure. So I have been working in higher education for over 20 years. A huge chunk of my time was at the University of California, Irvine, where I worked with low-income first-generation students, helping them prepare for application to the university as well as to community colleges. And then I moved to the community college to be the Director of Special Populations and Equity Programs at Chaffey College. And now I am at Riverside City College as the Associate Dean of Educational Partnerships, still working with some of our most marginalized students, still collaborating with colleagues and partners across the region to identify ways to better support our students and to provide them the support and access that they deserve.
Before we start, I have a question. What inspired Riverside City College to prioritize equitable dual enrollment expansion? And what personally makes it important to you?
Yes, I really appreciate that question. So dual enrollment has been growing nationally and definitely across the state of California. And so Riverside City College created this position to really help make sure that we were being very intentional about the pathways that we created, about the partnerships that we developed, and about the students that we wanted to include in dual enrollment. And really, we saw dual enrollment as our way of standing true to our vision and our mission of meeting students where they're at, of going to them, being of service to the community, and really listening to the community and its needs, and working with them hand in hand in collaboration to expand higher education opportunities for everyone. And over the years, it's just been skyrocketing. We are now, I believe, 5 times bigger than what we were when we started in 2018-19. And a lot of it is just this, students are recognizing the value, counselors are recognizing the value. And we'll talk about different ways in this presentation. We'll talk about different ways that students may be able to achieve early college credit. And dual enrollment is just one of those ways, but it is really a great way to do it. And I say it provides the biggest bang for students' buck, especially since it's absolutely free. And while our program has been growing, we want to make sure that no one is being left out, that everyone has a seat at the table. Everyone has, an opportunity to engage. And we've seen that, unfortunately, some of our populations, such as our Latinx and African-American students, haven't had the same access or haven't taken advantage of dual enrollment in the same ways that their peers have. And so we crunched the numbers and we saw where the equity gaps were. And so we have been very intentional about doing our best to close those gaps.
Amazing. Well, I'm excited to hear more about it. So I'll give you the floor and let you take it away.
I appreciate that. Yes, so this presentation was a collaborative effort between myself and the Career Ladders Project. The Career Ladders Project is a technical service provider that is contracted with the California Community College Chancellor's Office, and they work with different colleges across the state on a number of issues and a number of initiatives and equity gap closing. And dual enrollment is one way that many folks have realized that if we really want to expand access to higher education, diversify the students who are not only enrolling in higher education, but also succeeding, right? So, and you can just define success in a number of ways, but if you're talking about transferring to universities, if you're talking about completing degrees and certificates, if you're talking about also all the way down to course level success, dual enrollment is one of those ways to help them to make some real movement in the state and in each of our colleges. And so working with Career Ladders Project, we decided, this is one of their presentations that has really taken off, and they really like to highlight a college in every region. And so when they came to present at Toward a Shared Vision, they asked for me to partner, and I absolutely wanted to say yes because of the work that we were doing to close equity gaps. So we had participated in a community of practice with Career Ladders Project, and we identified 2 school districts that we work with, Alvord Unified School District and Riverside Unified School District. And we looked at our numbers and we worked together to identify strategies to increase dual enrollment access as well as success for our Black and Brown students. So, so through that work, we have been now going to different presentations across the state, or I'm sorry, different conferences across the state to present our efforts and our findings. So as we jump in, so I first wanted to talk about just like an overview, kind of a level setter, so that we can make sure that we're using, that we understand the terminology that's being used, as well as why this is this is a statewide movement. So dual enrollment, there's a lot of words that are used, and really what dual enrollment means is when any high school student is dually enrolled in both high school and college courses. We have seen that dual enrollment, that there's great benefits for dual enrollment to students, families, and to the state as a whole. So research has continued to show that students who participate in dual enrollment tend to graduate from high school at higher rates. They tend to complete college at higher rates. And this is especially seen with our students of color and low income and first generation students. So they tend to benefit exponentially from participating in dual enrollment as compared to their counterparts. For families, it reduces the cost of college. It's free for students to participate. And we'll talk about some of the different dual enrollment programs that really can help mitigate costs in the long run for students when it comes to being able to afford college. It also offers an opportunity for students to accelerate completion. Sorry about all the chiming on my email. I'm blowing up. But so it helps accelerate completion for students with college, because they're able to complete a good number of units while they're in high school and while it's free. As well as accelerate entry into the workforce. Now, I am a big proponent for staying in college for as long as you can, but however, that may not be the best approach for every single family. So it's important for each family to understand what's best for them. And also, as it can accelerate completion. And as I like to think, that gives more time for students to take advantage of other opportunities that are at the universities if they choose to transfer and go in that direction, or if they choose to enter into university upon high school graduation. I participated in study abroad. I know that there's other programs where students can do internships all around the country, and they can really explore what it means to be a college student and to develop those skills that will help them better enter the workforce. And so the more classes that they're able to complete as early as possible, this really does expand their opportunities for being able to take advantage of that time while they're in college. Also, with it also is a benefit to the state of California because less time for completion for students means students are entering the workforce faster. You have more skilled workers who are graduating college with less debt, and that is great for everyone. That's great for individuals as well as the state as a whole. So, so as we look at terms, so we define dual enrollment. You'll hear a lot about CCAP because CCAP is a very specific dual enrollment program that was brought to us through legislation from the state, and we'll go into that in a little bit. So the college and career access pathways, that's really is what helping dual enrollment really take off in the state of California in particular. Concurrent enrollment is a term that we use at Riverside Community College District, and other colleges I hear also use this term, but you will never see it codified in law. It's not in Title V or anything like that. It's not an actual term, but we use it often to describe high school students who are trying to take college independently, and they're taking classes while they are with other non-high school students. So they may be they may be the only high school student in their class. Special admit, that's just what the state of California refers to. That's how they refer to most K through 12 or adult education students who are taking dual enrollment classes. So a student, they'll refer to that student as a special admit. And yes, adult education students who are on track to receiving their high school diploma or GED are from an adult school are able to enroll in college as dual enrollment students and receive those same benefits that our K through 12 students can get. And then so dual credit is another term that you'll hear, or early college credit. And so I have a list of the types of early college credit. So so I've talked about dual enrollment, but there's also articulation. There's also advanced placement classes, international baccalaureate, and I'm sure there are other opportunities that perhaps I couldn't think of. And these are all ways for students to get college credit while they're in high school. And they each are very unique, and they each have their own requirements. And but at the community college, you'll often hear about dual enrollment and articulation. Articulation is not considered dual enrollment because the class is taught by a high school teacher who's not employed by the college. But those are classes at the high school that the college has identified are very similar to college classes within a specific community college district. So you'll have an articulation agreement with an actual community college district. I'm not going to read all of this, and I don't want to spend too much time here, but I just wanted to say, I keep talking about CCAP and how it was legislation that came about in 2015 that really just opened the door for many colleges and high schools to enter into formalized agreements. So these are agreements, MOUs, whatever you want to call them, that our boards have to approve. And there was an acknowledgement that dual enrollment really, our higher performing students tended to take advantage of dual enrollment at higher rates. Our Asian and white students, our affluent students, our non-first generation students, those are the students who typically took advantage of dual enrollment. And so the state of California wants to expand this, and they want us to think differently about who can participate in dual enrollment, who should be included in these opportunities, right? And so they want to be more inclusive as opposed to exclusive, which is what dual enrollment really kind of was in the past. So, and they understand that it can be a strategy for expanding higher education for some students who might not have ever thought of themselves as college material, or maybe they were told by some adult that they were not college material, or they're underrepresented in higher education. And so this is California's way to address that. And the goal really is to set clear pathways, aligned sequence coursework. This is not dual enrollment. These are not what we call random cases of dual enrollment. These are, we want students to walk away with something that's tangible, whether they are on track to being able to transfer to a university or perhaps they are actually able to complete a degree or certificate, but it shouldn't just be random cases of dual enrollment. And so the legislation allowed to remove fiscal penalties and policy barriers that would discourage dual enrollment. So, for example, now colleges can collect apportionment. They can close the classes. It's not open to just the general public. So, high school students can now take college classes taught by college faculty, and have it be, and everyone in the class is a high school student, which is a lot different than what it looked like prior to 2015. So now that it really is starting to take off and there's popularity, our chancellor of the California Community College system, Dr. Sonia Christian, has really set a charge for all community colleges in the state to really think about how we can expand dual enrollment even more. And so she has laid out Vision 2030. And really, she calls it a roadmap for California's community colleges. And dual enrollment is a huge piece of that. This builds, Vision 2030 builds off of the Vision for Success, which came in 2017 under Chancellor Eloy Oakley. It also builds off of the governor's roadmap, which calls for a 15% increase in dual enrollment, as well as closing equity gaps. And so what Dr. Christian has taken even a step further, she would like to see every single high school student in the state of California have some type of exposure or engagement in a community college class. And her dream is to have every student walk away with at least 12 units completed. And so they call it the 9th grade strategy. And that's, we can think of it 12 and 4. So you can say 12 units in 4 years, or if you want 12 and 3, 12 and 2, 12 and 1. If we think about a regular community college class, or an average, community college class is about 3 units. And so that would be about, 4 classes that a student could take. You could do, 2 in the 12th grade, 2 in your junior year, or 1 for each semester during your time in high school. And when you think about it that way, it really is doable. And we have some high school students who are graduating from high school with 30 units completed, 60 units completed. It is possible. And so 12 and 4 really isn't that far off. It could happen. It will require a lot of coordination and collaboration between 2 very different and distinct systems. We are K through 12 system and our community college system. They are very different in many ways. They have different benchmarks. They have different goals. They have different missions. However, I do believe it is possible. We can do it. It just will take a lot of creativity and planning. And while we're doing that planning, Dr. Christian is asking us to also think about, what does equity look like? Equity in access, success, and support at each stage and each step of the process for the student. So now I'm kind of gave us a little foundation. I also want to talk about the context and some more common baselines. So, and I'm not going to spend too much on the data. However, just if we look at the trend of enrollments, right? So we saw in 2021, following the pandemic, our enrollment at community college really took a hit. We are on an upswing, and we hope that we will stay on that upswing. I know folks keep talking about the budgets and it's going to start getting a little tight here at the K through 12s as well as the community colleges, and I imagine in other sectors of the state as well. And so we'll see if we can hold firm with that with our current enrollment growth. But these charts help us see that even though enrollment was declining for community colleges, which is in that blue line, you can see the enrollment of students under the age of 18 grew, right? So our dual enrollment students enrolled at a higher rate than our non-dual enrollment students, or our general population students. And so that shows us an opportunity, because the goal, or I'm sorry, the drive is there for our high school students. They want to take these classes. And so that was nationally, and then this is showing you just in California. Once again, our dual enrollment students, that enrollment is growing. And very quickly looking at so this is just the legislation that's been passed ever since 2015. Look at this. This is all paving the way for dual enrollment and removing barriers. It really is amazing to see just how California has really doubled down on this idea of dual enrollment and how we can better serve our students. And so there's more legislation that's coming, and just to, once again, continue to remove those barriers so more and more students can participate. And so in terms of the types of dual enrollment, so I gave you the types of early college credit. So let's dig a little deeper. So we're trying to take a deep dive, right? That's what this presentation is about. So the types of dual enrollment in California, you have, if you look at this table, it starts with the highly structured on the left and moves towards a less structured format towards the right. And so you can see our middle college and our early colleges, they have been around for decades, right? And so typically these are high schools on college campuses. That's what middle colleges are. Whereas early colleges tend to be college classes at high school campuses. So that typically is a difference. However, sometimes there are a little bit of nuances there as well. And so you could see the different opportunities that they have at those institutions. And then we have CCAP, which is a little less structured. So it might not be a formalized, so some have very formalized pathways. Some allow students to kind of pick and choose what classes at the high school they'll take. But there is still a limited menu of classes hosted by the high school. And then you also have non-CCAP. So not everybody has a CCAP agreement. So others may have different MOUs in place or just different agreements. CCAP is the fastest growing though. And then you have your individual students that I mentioned, your students who just go through the college catalog and they pick the class that they want. And not everyone in that class is a high school student. And so that is not as structured because it's really typically up to the student. So as an example, I have RCC. Now this pie chart is not drawn to scale, but I just wanted to share kind of some different ways that we have dual enrollment. So we have CCAP is our largest sector of dual enrollment. We also have early college high school that is located at RCC, but it's an alternative high school, and we are very proud of the work that is being done there. Just really phenomenal. Is growing by leaps and bounds. More and more students are taking advantage of it. And then we also have Rubidoux Early College High School, which is at Rubidoux High School, and so that is an early college program that's been around since 2007. We have our adult school, so we have concurrent enrollment with our students who are doing adult school students who are on the high school diploma or GED track. And then we also have dual enrollment with our Riverside County Office of Education. That's with our community school and court school students at RCOE. So these are students who may be currently detained, may have been expelled from their high school, and so they've enrolled at RCOE community school, and sometimes we partner with our Rising Scholars program, which is a program at our college that serves our justice impacted students. And so you'll see that with CCAP, we have 3 school districts that we work with: Albert, Jurupa Unified, and Riverside Unified. It says that we have 10 high schools, but actually we have 13 high schools when you consider when you factor in our continuation schools in those districts. And we have different pathways. The most popular one is the Transfer I Get C pathway, but we also have our nursing fast track. We have certified nursing assistant, early childhood, and and it really is just doing wonders for students. And so when you think, so just I want to kind of prelude. There's the next slide. They're going to talk about dual enrollment and compare it for high school programs to non-high school programs. So I just wanted to just provide a definition when we refer to high school only. It's these 4 areas of dual enrollment and not the individual students. So keep that in mind for the next slide, right? So right here, the UC Davis Wheelhouse Center did a study, and you'll see that participation in dual enrollment is growing, right? And it's growing for everyone. However, they wanted you to pay special attention to the high school only dual enrollment. So even though it is was at this time, I believe, was at say 2019-20. There were less students participating in high school only dual enrollment, or there was a lot of students participating in any type. But look at the equity gaps, right? So look at the equity gaps that we had for our between our Asian and white, Black and Latinx students, for those individual students who were just enrolling in dual enrollment because perhaps their parent told them to, or perhaps their teacher encouraged them to, right? But for those who are doing the high school only dual enrollment, like CCAP, look at those equity gaps. They're there, they exist, but they're much, much smaller. And so we see CCAP as really closing those equity gaps and really helping to level the playing field for our students. This is another, so one of the myths is that our students who participate in dual enrollment don't tend to come to the community college right after high school graduation. Some folks will say, oh, we're just preparing those dual enrollment students to be more competitive applicants for the university. And remember, I used to work for UC Irvine, and that was one of the ways that we would encourage students to become competitive applicants. It helps your college application, your UC application, if you can say that you did dual enrollment. However, that's not what the numbers are showing. The numbers are showing that the majority of students who participate, at least in CCAP, the majority of them, 51%, are moving on to enroll in 2-year institutions following high school graduation. So it really is about establishing those relationships early with our high school students, helping, give them a name and a department and a place to come to after they graduate from high school, and they know exactly who to talk to and how to, and they know exactly how to enroll. They know how to register for classes. They know what departments are going to be helpful. They know what programs to join when they get here. And so that tends to be one of the reasons why not only do they enroll in community college at higher rates after high school graduation, they also tend to complete college at higher rates. So what will it take to realize Vision 2030, right? So I shared the why and the how and all of that, or the what. So what now we need to get really into the nitty gritty, that deep dive, right? So what does equity in dual enrollment look like? So when we think about equity and access, equity and support, equity and success, what do we need to do? One, we need to do intentional outreach to underrepresented students, and we need to be completely unapologetic about who we are trying to make space for. And as I mentioned, no one needs to be excluded. We're not talking about excluding any students. We're talking about how can we be more inclusive, right? And so what do I need to do if I want to make sure that I am enrolling and helping students succeed who are Latinx, African American, and Native American? How do we be more intentional about enrolling these students? Another group that tends to not be included is our English language learners and our students with special needs. So how can we be more inclusive of all of these groups? How can we streamline matriculation processes? Over and over again, we hear that CCC Apply can be a challenge. It can be a barrier for many of our students to get through that college application. It's not as intuitive as we think. And so once they do the application, and then they have to submit their paperwork, and then they have to register for classes, we can lose students at every single point of that pipeline. And so making sure that we have the supports in place, knowing where those gaps tend to be for students and meeting them there before they're even able to drop out, right? Flexible scheduling. This is something, where we can work with the college faculty, identifying clear pathways. And I should say identifying pathways that are not only clear, but also pathways that students want, right? Pathways that students are interested in. And of course, eliminating those barriers along the way. The support that students need really relies on strong partnerships, cross-institutional programming, dedicated counselors on both the college side as well as the high school side, and dedicated support staff, once again, at both institutions, the high school side and the college side, as well as thinking about how can we embed current students or tutors or different peer mentors, different ways for students to engage. And as we think about success, we talked about embedded supports along the way, but also embedded supports as we launch the pathway. So sometimes entering the path may be challenging for students, and being able to visualize what this path will do and what it will lead to for them. And then providing that constant feedback loop, not only for students, but also for our high school counselors, as well as our college faculty. And then regularly reviewing disaggregated data. So yes, we can look at overall success rates. We also need to look at our success rates by race and ethnicity, by gender, by course, and even by section if we can, so that we can see where our students are succeeding and where they aren't, and be able to address those needs wherever we can. And then, so this is an example of a potential course and pathway plan. So as we're thinking about, like, okay, where do we start? Well, this is where you can start, right? So you can identify what are some different academic pathways or academies that already exist at your school. I know a lot of schools start with perhaps their articulated classes, right? So if they have a number of articulated classes, what will it take to get those students to a certificate? So if they take perhaps 2 or 3 articulated classes with you, with the high school, and then perhaps a couple of community college capstone courses to close off that certificate. So there's ways that we can. Are there classes that we already have? Are there classes that we need to add? Do we have faculty do we have teachers at the high school who have the credentials that maybe they can be hired on as adjunct faculty for the college, and they can be the ones to teach this class? And then, as we identify that pathway and figuring out what exact units would students be able to get, and what would be the timeline for that. It's all doable. It's not easy. I'm not saying that this table is easy to complete. It does require everyone sitting down at the table and having that conversation. That conversation absolutely needs to begin. And so when we think about what our students deserve quality. They do deserve equity. They do deserve those wraparound services. They deserve that nurturing and that support. So we want to focus equity on in design, recruitment, and outcomes, right? It has to be all 3. We need to be able to provide those structured pathways with the well-designed course sequences. Students need to know exactly what they need, what they're getting into from the very beginning to the very end, so they can make informed decisions. High expectations with high supports. Many of our students, my most popular class for dual enrollment is English 1A, college level English. And our students are succeeding, they're doing well, they're excelling. So we need to have those high expectations for them and build in those supports, right? So the writing labs for RCC are required parts for the class, right? And providing those opportunities for students to engage in that. For our for our dual enrollment students, most likely they're not going to come to the community college to participate in that writing lab. So how can we make that accessible for them? So for RCC, all of our writing labs are also offered virtually, and our students can participate either synchronously or asynchronously. So just being able to have that embedded into the structure. right? And we need engaged, culturally responsive teaching and curriculum. Um, these classes are college classes. Absolutely. They have the same level of rigor. There's nothing dumbed down for the students. And so, and at the same time, we also have to keep in mind that this is a very distinct age group. This is different than having a mixture of students in your class who may be, some may be teenagers and some may be 20-year-olds and some may be 30-year-olds. Well, for these classes, for CCAP at least, they are all high school students. And so how can we make sure that the curriculum that we provide to them is relevant and engaging for them, right? And we need those strong cross-institutional partnerships in order to make this happen, because there are going to be bumps along the way. And so we need that commitment from everyone involved that no matter what bumps we encounter, we're going to get through it together. And it's all for the benefit of the student. And with that comes to a close. And I open it up for any questions, and thank you so much for allowing me to share my slides with you.
Thank you, Adrienne. That was a great presentation. Just a question that I have, just curious, what specific support structures or resources are available to ensure that students who participate are set up for success?
So specific supports. So recently, for example, Riverside City College, we hired a educational advisor. And so that educational advisor is someone who can go out to the high schools. She can do presentations to the students, to the parents, and in English and Spanish. And she can also do those one-on-ones, helping students understand what their classes will lead toward, right? So she's not a counselor, so she's not able to counsel them on what classes they should take. However, she can expose them to the different pathways, and she can set up counseling appointments for them to meet with a counselor. Say if the student has participated in dual enrollment for a few terms and they want to know how their classes can be used for, how they can be applied towards a degree or certificate. So those counseling supports are important. The advising supports are important. The peer engagement is important. Really helping students understand what they have access to at the college. So our dual enrollment students are college students, right? They are part of the college community. And so helping them understand that they have access to the same resources, they have access to the library, helping them utilize the library, helping them understand that some of our students are food and housing insecure. And so they have, access to our basic needs resource center. Some of our students do have special needs, and they require an IEP or an individual education plan at the high school. And so that process is a little different at the community college. So we provide students with accommodations. If the student approaches the DRC and shares with them, they have to have a diagnosis, and the counselor helps assess, and then the counselor will assess what accommodations they are eligible for, and then help them work with the faculty member of their college class to make sure that they can have access to those accommodations, right? And so all of these things, this is all new for high school students. It's, they've gotten used to the K through 12 system, and now we're asking them to get used to a completely different system. And so you don't know what you don't know. And so our goal is to really bring awareness to the students about what supports are in place. And so our ed advisor can only do so much. So, hiring student workers, peer mentors, really to help guide them through is really essential as well, where a student can say, hey, when I started college, I, took advantage of the honors program, or I took advantage of EOPS, or have you ever heard about Emoja? So there's so many different opportunities for students to help them be successful and to stay on their path, and to find the program of services or the menu of services that fits them.
That's great. Thank you so much for taking the time once again to enlighten us on dual enrollment and share with our audience, the details, and go into a deep dive of what it really means and what all this work really does entail. So thank you again, Adrienne.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me. And I look forward to, if anyone has any questions, they can absolutely reach out to me. So I look forward to hearing more about how the region is working together to expand equitable dual enrollment for our students.